Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining to a Veritas webinar yet again. It has been an exciting time with Veritas in the last few months. Earlier this year, we released NetBackup 9.0, came in with a significant number of features, and within the same part of the year, we are now also announcing NetBackup 9.1. So thank you all for making time today and walking through, helping us walk you through the entire NetBackup 9.1 portfolio and the feature sets that we are going to introduce. So today I have with me our esteemed speakers, Philip Pereira. Philip Pereira is our solutions architect based in Sydney. He's been with Veritas for um, close to 2 decades now, and he has been our chief architect within the region for a very long time. So Phil will walk us through the session today. I also have Cheksan joining us from Singapore. Cheksan is a regional practice leader specializing in data protection. So thank you, Cheksan, for making time. And I have Daniel Go with me. Daniel is our SE manager based out of Singapore as well. And Daniel looks after the broader government organizations within the region. So thank you, Daniel, again. And I will be your host today. I would want to walk you through and help bring out the questions that you have with the forum here. So if you have any questions and you would like to make this as interactive as possible, so please chime in with your questions in the Q&A box. Between Cheksan, Daniel, and myself, we'll try to address all the questions right away. And if we are not able to address the questions by the end of it, we will definitely follow up after the session. So with that said, I'm going to bring up a first poll, and to get everyone going on the poll, I'm going to load up the first poll now, and you should see the poll now coming up in front of your screen. We would like to know what is the state of adoption of containers in your organization. So this could be Kubernetes, this could be cloud-based Kubernetes, it could be OpenShift or any form of containers. But we wanted to understand how your organization is looking at containers. Is it already in production? Is it under evaluation that you would probably have it in 6-12 months from now? And the third option could be that no, that doesn't fit our need. So we'd not be looking at it. So I'll probably give another 5 seconds for our audience to start polling. And I'll ask Trudy to help me out with the results now. So thanks, Trudy, if you can pull out the results. All right, so we have a majority of customers looking at 38% is already they already have containers in production, and which is a good news today, that we are also going to speak a lot about how data protection and containers with NetBackup 9.0 comes together. So without actually delaying it any further, I'm going to hand it over to Phil. And Phil, the stage is yours. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Amit. And thanks everyone for making time today to be with us to know what's updated and new with NetBackup 9.1. So if you've known Veritas and if you worked with us over the past years, you can now work with Veritas and consume products under a common license framework. We call it the Enterprise Data Management Framework. So in short, Veritas does a lot of things. In fact, we keep things available, disaster recovery and high availability solutions portfolio from Veritas. We have the protection portfolio where NetBackup falls into, and we have a few other solutions that fall into the protection pillar as well. And then we have our insights portfolio, right? So we believe that to make things better and keep things up, keep the lights on, so to speak, these all sections of our portfolio come into play. So we are, in a way, a bit unique. We are not just a backup vendor, so always remember and keep that in mind. And chances are today that if you're using a toll system on a highway or paying for your train ticket, like in the Sydney trains environment, or if you are doing a banking transaction, transferring money out from one bank to another bank somewhere, chances are that there is a Veritas product somewhere keeping the lights on, keeping things available, and making life better for you. So behind that, for everything that we've been doing over the years, we've been doing what the analysts recognize as a pretty good job with evidence from the number of years that they recognized us for the good things we've done, the happy customers we have, and the engineering talent that is behind to support you on the constant transformation journeys that our customers are going through. And today, we started with the polling question on containers. So that's the new disruptive workload that is coming to our environment. So if you were new to our webcast today, we've gone through webcasts introducing something new from the NetBackup portfolio itself, like sort of every 6 months. And the last time we did a session was related to NetBackup 9.0 when this was introduced earlier in January. So 9.0 introduced something new to the 3-tier NetBackup architecture. It's always been a scale-up solution. And with 9.0 onwards, we also introduced something new called NetBackup FlexScale. So now we have a scale-out form factor of NetBackup as well. There are no 3 tiers in that architecture. It's a different architecture. So yes, there are multiple ways of using NetBackup today. Get in touch with us. We can discuss more options and more capabilities around the FlexScale offering as well. So with that said, now we are about 6 months down the road since NetBackup 9 was released, and we already have a number of customer testimonials we've received from those who upgraded and who started using NetBackup 9. And happy to highlight a few of these quotes for you here. So if you are still thinking about adopting NetBackup 9, I hope after today, I will be able to give you even more reasons. So NetBackup 9.1. NetBackup 9.1 would be the next best reason. NetBackup 9.1 was made generally available earlier this month on the first week of June in 2021. So to record. Now, there are a number of features that we release with every release of NetBackup. And you can see here lots of features which are released. Now, I don't have the liberty to go into every one of these features in detail in the time we have today, but I'll highlight a few of these things. Dynamic NAS was a new capability for protecting network attached storage environments that we've introduced way back in NetBackup 8.3, developed a bit more in NetBackup 9.0, and with the 9.1 update of the dynamic NAS protection capability, now we allow you to protect NAS environments, large NAS environments, and also capture CIFS SMB information as well. So I would say about 90% of network attached storage deployments out there do make use of CIFS and SMB for storing Office documents. And for such environments, access control rights are very important. So now we can protect with access control rights and restore files from the NAS environments and retain the important file permissions for security purposes. The snapshot capabilities in the NetBackup product have had additional snapshot-based storage devices added. So you can see the hardware snapshot proliferations we've done. Kubernetes, a number of enhancements. I will talk specifically on the Kubernetes enhancements a bit later. We've also developed and brought with NetBackup 9.1 a capability that allows even more flexibility for SQL recovery. Now, often when data centers, typically if I take the example of Australia, most customers have data spread across at least 2 data centers, and they have a third location that is used for long-term retention. So when you have multiple copies of the backups stored in different areas, which copy do you recover from? And the flexibility of recovering from any copy is made much easier with NetBackup 9.1, specifically for SQL DBAs. Nutanix, we've had a long journey in supporting Nutanix environments, and with 9.1, if we are using the Acropolis hypervisor, we add even more functionality, much like we've had for VMware with agentless recovery. Now we're bringing the same flexibility for Acropolis hypervisor users as well. Oracle Intelligent Policies, or OIP, we call it in short, goes back to NetBackup version 7.6 when we introduced it. And in NetBackup 9.0, we introduced the ability for intelligent policies to recognize Oracle RAC deployments. Now with 9.1, we can also recognize data guard deployments. So if your Oracle deployment is such that you have a production environment and a disaster recovery environment with data guard replication, now with NetBackup, you can decide whether you want to back up from the production location or from the data guard replica, all through the NetBackup framework for Oracle workloads, right? So that's another level of flexibility that you can get with NetBackup 9.1's enhancement for Oracle. VMware, I have lots more to say about some additional enhancements for VMware. I'll talk in a bit more detail in a subsequent slide. Azure Stack. If you're using Azure Stack, we supported Azure Stack with NetBackup 8.2 onwards, but we had a different method for Azure Stack versus Azure. With NetBackup 9.1, the Azure Stack data protection mechanism is brought in line with the same capabilities we offer for Azure in the cloud. So the protection mechanisms for Azure Stack, which is the private cloud offering for Azure deployments on premises, becomes on par with everything we do with Microsoft inside an Azure deployment. So same framework, same look and feel, and the same capabilities for Azure Stack. So that's a major change in the way we protect and help you recover from Azure Stack deployments. And with this release of NetBackup, if you know us from a few releases back, we've had capabilities for cloud data and virtual machine protection by way of snapshots. So we've been able to help protect EC2 instances, Azure virtual machines, or Google virtual machines by way of snapshots in NetBackup for some time now. Now with NetBackup 9.1, we allow you to ingest the contents of the snapshots into a media server and write it to any NetBackup storage location you want to, right? So we start the snapshot ingestion capability. It starts with a NetBackup 9.1. So if your deployment covers Azure or Azure Stack, now you can protect those virtual machines as snapshots, ingest the contents of the snapshots to a media server, and store it offsite or in another location of your choice. Cloud intelligent policies, again, it's another important feature. It means that with cloud environments, where if you have tags associated with a cloud deployment of storage, virtual machines, and whatnot, now we have tag-based protection with cloud intelligent policies. Another important feature for marketplace presence, if you're deploying NetBackup in AWS or Azure, instead of deploying and installing NetBackup in your own virtual machine, the easiest way to do it is to go to the marketplace, pick the NetBackup instance from there, and deploy it from the cloud marketplace. So that way, a templated best practices implementation of a master or a media server can be done very quickly. Now we bring the same flexibility into Google or GCP deployments as well. So that's another way we are making NetBackup consumption in a cloud environment much easier. A few more things. Storage lifecycle policies. A lot of our customers use storage lifecycle policies for backup copy management, right? So SLPs make backup copy management way much easier. And now the SLPs can be managed straight from the NetBackup web interface. So you can go to the web interface, work with the SLPs, assign them to policies, and change SLPs straight from the web interface as well. What that means is that every time we add the function to the web interface, we add it to the REST API framework as well. So if you like to work with the NetBackup REST APIs, you'll find similar functions to what we have on the web interface on the REST API framework as well. If you are a customer who uses search files, find files and folders, restore function, which is there in NetBackup Ops Center, I know a number of customers in Australia who uses this function. So if you, most often, the end user who wants a file or a folder recovered has a vague idea about what they're trying to restore. They'll say the file name looks like this. It may have been backed up on this date or the other date. The folder name sounded like this. So they'll come with a wildcard criteria of what they want you to help with. With the web UI today, you can ask that user to log in to the web UI, and of course you can grant them rights through role-based access control, so that they can only see what they are meant to see. They can go and find the files or the folders and initiate file restores straight from the web interface of NetBackup 9.1. So that's another major enhancement we added to make operations much more simpler with NetBackup 9.1. So all that means is that the web interface becomes even more attractive for the end users to use. And therefore, security is an important aspect we need to look into. So to make security much better, now you can have single sign-on or SAML integration, not just with the web interface. Now you can have SAML integration with the Java interface as well. And two-factor authentication, 2FA. If two-factor authentication is what your organization wants to have for monitoring security and who accesses NetBackup, you can bring that on board to the web interface or the Java interface with NetBackup 9.1. So with regards to ransomware protection, we added capabilities for immutable backup retention using Veritas Flex appliances or Veritas supported OST appliances in NetBackup 8.3. So with NetBackup 9.1, now we add support for immutable retention of backup images on AWS S3. So AWS Amazon has S3 with a feature called Object Lock. Now you can store your backup images on AWS with Object Lock straight forward from your NetBackup policy. right? So the immutable retention, not just with storage technologies on-prem, now we bring the immutable retention and defense mechanism to public object store devices as well. So again, these are beginnings, and you might say, oh, can we store it with a different cloud vendor? A lot of other cloud vendors technologies are being worked with. So you can see us adding more immutable retention targets as time goes. Another curious ask we've had for a number of years is, if you're installing NetBackup in a server, Windows or Linux or Unix, it's always been installed under the root privilege. Now with NetBackup 9.1 onwards, you can assign a different user for installing of NetBackup, not necessary for it to be granted root access. So that's another capability we added with this release to make security posture better in terms of what your organization security team may want you to work with. So a lot's going on here. This was one quick snapshot of a lot of features. So we earlier asked about, are you using Kubernetes in your organization or containers? And the poll came back that a lot of you have already started using Kubernetes or containers in your organization. And why? So what we've been told by our customers is that containers and Kubernetes give them improved availability, gives them cost savings, and most importantly, shorter time for development. All right. So shorter time for development, improved productivity, and scalability were highlighted as the changes. But with them, our customers also told us that they face a number of challenges with container and Kubernetes adoption. They said they are most often under-integrated with the enterprise tools of the day that they come to use today. They also told us that they face a number of challenges with application complexity as they adopt Kubernetes and containers. And they also said that they see a number of container and Kubernetes deployments on-prem and in the cloud having slightly different implementations from one to another. So these were given to us as challenges from our customers when we discussed what's going on in their environment. So our engineering went to work on this, and we had some engineering goals. So we were goaled on making things simpler, right? And make it as enterprise grade ready, which is what NetBackup does always for any workload that it starts supporting. And also to give you choice and flexibility to help you overcome the different implementation challenges based on how things are deployed on-prem, how things are deployed in one cloud versus another cloud. So what we managed to come up with under NetBackup 9.1 is a fully integrated protection mechanism for Kubernetes workloads. So we give you protection at namespace level. Consider this phase one of the Kubernetes workload support. So we give you full backup and recovery capability based on snapshots we take from namespaces or storage, persistent storage that is under the management of the Kubernetes deployment. And support comes not just for generic Kubernetes. We extend support for the VMware's implementation of Kubernetes, trademark VMware Tanzu, Red Hat's implementation based on OpenShift, and the Google Container Engine deployment as well. So there you go. This is our phase one, first introduction foray into Kubernetes. And if you remember NetBackup support for containerized workloads. NetBackup happens to be the first certified Docker backup solution, and that capability was introduced in NetBackup 8.2. I would say in 2019, it almost seems like yesterday. So we've been having a solution through NetBackup to protect Dockerized workloads, but with 9.1, now we integrate with the Kubernetes orchestration mechanism as well. Cloud intelligent policies. So I mentioned briefly about the tags. So if you know NetBackup, now NetBackup historically protects workloads based on host names. And in the case of environments like VMware, we've had capabilities where you could protect virtual machines not just based on host names. You could protect virtual machine name based on machine names or tags or annotations you assign in the vCenter. With NetBackup and Cloud, with NetBackup 9.1, we bring a similar capability to what we've done in the past for VMware environments. So if you're deploying a virtual machine, let's say in Azure or AWS, you don't get to choose the host name, right? The host name is typically dynamically allocated by the cloud engine when you deploy a virtual machine. So what cloud workload deployment groups typically do is they will associate a tag that will help them identify the cloud virtual machine. So if the virtual machine or the set of virtual machines are associated with the application that is related to HR, or let's say the accounts department, they might assign a tag that says, oh, this is accounts database. And they might say this is accounts act. So they might associate a tag that identifies that virtual machine or the storage asset has been associated with a name that your organization understands. So what cloud intelligent policies bring to NetBackup is an ability for you to protect workloads by searching against the cloud asset name. So makes it very easy for you to work with the names or the naming convention of your organization as you protect workloads. And the capability extends across to all workloads in the cloud that we support today. So across AWS, Azure, GCP or Google Cloud Platform as well. And because we've extended the Azure framework to Azure Stack, it extends to Azure Stack deployments as well. So this is a major enhancement to make cloud workload protection much easier with NetBackup 9.1 onwards. And I mentioned that we introduced in NetBackup 9.1 an ability for you to not just snapshot cloud virtual machines, but with 9.1, we start also ingesting the contents of those snapshots into a media server for protection into any storage location if you wanted to. So we start that capability with Azure and Azure Stack in NetBackup 9.1. And if you look at it, to ingest the contents of a snapshot into a media server, we need to read the snapshot and collect the data to a media server and write it to a storage unit. Now, this orchestration requires a bit of effort to spin up some temporary compute resources. And we do that by using the cloud auto-scaling functions. So now you can see us adopting what the platforms allow. So auto-scaling function comes into NetBackup 9.1 as well. So you can see us adopting and leveraging best of cloud functions as future releases go. So we start this auto-scaling implementation for cloud workload backup ingestion in NetBackup 9.1. So immutable retention, I mentioned that we start supporting object lock for AWS S3 destinations in NetBackup 9.1. And if you recall, in NetBackup version 8.1, we introduced something called secure communications, right? So with secure communications in NetBackup 8.1 onwards, the master, when it sends control instructions to the media servers or the clients, has an encrypted communication channel. With NetBackup 9.1 onwards, now you can implement data channel encryption as well. Now, customers have had the ability to do data channel encryption until now, if they used NetBackup's deduplication on the client. So if you use NetBackup deduplication on the client, we could transport the data from the client to a media server encrypted through the deduplication data transfer channel. But if you were not using NetBackup's client deduplication, there was no choice of implementing this unless you use NetBackup's client encryption. With TLS 1.3 and the data channel encryption mechanism we introduced in NetBackup 9.1, now you can choose to encrypt the data channel regardless of what type of storage destination you were backing up to. So now encryption in transit for not just control, but for data as well. In NetBackup 9.1, we are also introducing a capability that brings continuous data protection for VMware as well. Now, if you were following us for a couple of releases in the past, you might know that we now include Veritas resiliency platform with the NetBackup license. So NetBackup's license entitles you to protect the same front-end terabytes through the resiliency platform product as well. And the resiliency platform product has a mechanism where I/O can be captured for VMware deployment. So that capability now comes on board a media server. So with that, now you can capture writes and changes done to a virtual machine as the change is being done. And we can store the change continuously on a NetBackup media server, and thereby giving you a continuous data protection mechanism and allowing you to retain all the data for a specific preset time allocation. Now, this also brings us another possibility. Now, since all the writes are captured in the media server, when we want to back up the virtual machine, instead of backing up the actual virtual machine, we now get to capture the state of writes from the media server itself. So this gives us continuous data protection ability as one deliverable value. And it also gives us an ability to protect a virtual machine without actually doing a snapshot of the actual virtual machine by capturing the writes up to that certain point in time. So gives low impact protection for VMware, or we call it stun-free backup for VMware in NetBackup 9.1 onwards as well. It is an important feature for some of the customers who historically struggle with VMware backups when a snapshot has to be taken. Sometimes the snapshot stun time or the frozen in time few milliseconds is enough to take some of the applications offline. So this is a solution to alleviate that problem. And with NetBackup 9.1, we are, for the first time, also introducing a backup anomaly detector straight into NetBackup. So if you're backing up some workloads and the full backup, is a certain number of size and files, and the incremental backup is a specific standard size. And one fine day, there is an anomaly detected where the file count goes up, or the dedupe rate changes, or the backup size changes. We are including an AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning engine into the NetBackup master server that allows us to detect these anomalies and give you alerts. So this is a mechanism to help you defend against a potential ransomware attack that may have started rolling out in your environment, right? So we've had a number of customers who faced a lot of challenges with ransomware. We think this is a feature that will help you build a level of defense as a backup job gets across the environment. So another important feature if you are worried about defending against ransomware attacks in your environment. To make rapid recovery of lots of virtual machines be executed faster, in NetBackup 9.1, we are also introducing something called a VMware instant rollback feature. So if you're backing up, let's say 100 virtual machines, and the virtual machines together is about, let's call it 100 terabytes of data that are across your virtual machine farm. And if these virtual machines get impacted and if they have to be recovered, you still have to spend time to recover the virtual machine. Even if we give you instant recovery and all that, you still have to go and overwrite the virtual machine with the backup data. Now, if you look at the way we back up virtual machines, what we do is we continuously back up change blocks, right? So we know the change blocks we back up yesterday, the change block we back up the day before, and the change blocks we kept backing up through the history of the life of the backups we've done for any virtual machine. So what instant rollback allows you to do is, it allows you to go visualize. Now, there's a picture of this on the screen today. So you can go and browse your recovery points, click the specific recovery point you want to go back to. So, the environment discovers that you had a ransomware attack, encrypt a virtual machine, say 3 days back. And maybe someone comes to you and says, can you take the virtual machine back to what it was 4 days ago? So what we do with instant rollback is we have almost a journal of all the change blocks we backed up since 4 days ago. So what we'll do is we'll take those change blocks and then reapply them back to the original virtual machine. So allow you to roll back the virtual machine to the level of blocks that was there 4 days ago. So this recovery mechanism allows for very fast recovery of a virtual machine without spending the effort on restoring all the blocks to make the virtual machine go live, right? So literally, it's a journal rollback of the virtual machine's blocks that we have stored in the NetBackup media environment. So this makes it feasible for mass recovery of lots of virtual machines for VMware deployments. So this is another fast recovery option for VMware that you can deploy starting with NetBackup 9.1. And Acropolis Hypervisor, if you're using Acropolis Hypervisor, now we have intelligent policies, individual file restores. So similar to the functions we have for VMware, now we have them available for Acropolis Hypervisor deployments as well. So I talked a lot about VMware. I want to do a quick snapshot of things we've done for VMware in the recent past. We have added ransomware resilient rollback mechanisms. We've added support for VMware Tanzu framework as well. And one thing you remember us for NetBackup with VMware is that we've had a long history of joint development. And with large deployments of our customers today, we are backing up lots of virtual machines, all in a resource controlled manner, so that backups work without impacting too much on the virtual machine infrastructure through our intelligent policies. So there are lots of things we do for VMware, lots of developments we kept introducing in every release. If you're protecting VMware and you have additional capacity requirements for protecting VMware, Or if you're still not using VMware protection mechanism, talk to your favorite Veritas representative or your business partner who works with Veritas, because we have a special offer to entice you to adopt even more VMware data protection with NetBackup available today. Because of different locations we cover today, I'm not going to go into detail. So if you want to have additional capacity for VMware protected, talk to a Veritas a sales representative or a business partner and find out more details about this special offer. So it's a short word for VMware. Now we have NetBackup 9 and now we have NetBackup 9.1. So how can you deploy it? So you can always get our software, build your own environment, choose your own server and your own storage and go with it. And if you're deploying NetBackup in the cloud, remember those cloud deployment templates, go to the marketplace, pick the specific recommended configuration, click and deploy NetBackup inside the cloud using the template options very easily. If you like the hybrid options of mix and match, well, we always support those and will continue to support those. So remember with NetBackup, you can get our software, you can even get our appliance and even use a third-party target to store backups if that's your choice of enterprise deployment. And of course, if you want the all-in-one experience, we have the appliances from Veritas, and we have appliances available in virtual form factor, and appliances we built with containerization technology built into them as well, which is our Flex appliances portfolio. And with NetBackup 9.0 earlier in January, we also introduced the scale out option of NetBackup. So if you are working in a data center where your preference is scale out infrastructure, for example, Nutanix, you like Nutanix because it allows you scale out, or you have other reasons to like scale out deployments, talk to us about the scale out option for deploying NetBackup, which we can bring to you now through our FlexScale family of appliances as well. So Veritas is always about giving you, choice. We give you a choice of hardware and software you want to work with. And of course, in the appliances portfolio family, as I mentioned, virtual appliances are ideal for non-data center locations. The Flex appliance family also starts very small. So we have this model called the one rack unit model called the Flex 50 on 50. Ideal for remote location. It can be a master server, it can be a media server. It can also store backups immutable with retention that no one can touch or mess around with, even if it is on a remote location. So that's what the 5150 can do. And we have the data center appliance model 5250. Well, it could be a large remote location or a data center media server as well. So now you have the 5250 appliance available as a Veritas backup appliance or as a Flex 5250 Flex appliance as well. In the large data centers, you will use the 5300 family. So the 5300 family has a new member that came to market this month as well. So that is the model 5350. So the 5350 appliance is available as a Flex appliance today, and we'll have a NetBackup 5350 very soon available as well. And if you have lots of backups to store in a cost-effective form factor, talk to us about the private cloud retention option, which I will call as the Access 3340 appliance. And some numbers for you to give you a comparison of what a model 5250 might be capable of in terms of a model 5230, for example. So you can see over here, essentially a model 5250 can do approximately 3 times the workload of the older 5230 model. Now, I mentioned this because the model 5230 is still supported by Veritas for break fix. So if anything goes wrong, you can still call and get parts and fixes for that. But the model 5230, if you are still using today, it goes out of support end of, well, I'll say in around January of next year. So if you're still using a model 5230, talk to Veritas about special offers you can get to adopt and upgrade to a model 5250. And you can see you can also get the option of consolidation there as well. And the model 5350, which is just launched this month, becomes our third 5300 series appliance. And again, as same as we've done in the past, more performance and more capability on the new form factor. And of course, the access long-term retention appliance, it does a fairly good job. So it can be your tape replacement technology. It can also be your medium retention option as opposed to cloud being a long-term retention option. So talk to us if you are looking at a cost-effective retention technology on-prem, and the access target access 3340 would be the ideal form factor for you. So I rushed through, I suppose I talked quite fast because I'm trying to keep up to tell you about all the things we are constantly doing in our product to bring you more and more capabilities. So it's a journey with us, right? We are talking to you, getting feedback and developing functions so that you can do more for using NetBackup. So to step back, a short summary of a lot of things that have happened in this evolution. NetBackup 8.0, if you remember, 5 years ago, was an evolution in introducing a new security framework into NetBackup. And with NetBackup 8.1, we introduced a cloud deduplication gateway in the form of Cloud Catalyst. And with NetBackup 8.1, we introduced support for AWS Glacier as a backup location for the first time. So that is 3 years ago. And we introduced our REST API in NetBackup 8.1. And in NetBackup 8.1, we also introduced the ability to use third-party encryption key management stores to encrypt your backup, right? So the FIPS mode or encryption, asymmetric encryption mode started with NetBackup 8.1. And with NetBackup 8.1, we also introduced variable length deduplication abilities into NetBackup as well. So that's what happened approximately 3.5 years ago, all right? And with NetBackup 8.2 is when we introduced the web-based interface and role-based access control. So that function also goes a couple of years back. And with 8.12, we also introduced for the first time cloud workload virtual machine snapshot method, which we have updated now with cloud intelligent policies. And with NetBackup 8.12 is when we also introduced something called VX update. So VX update is a mechanism based on the master media server client interaction framework for you to distribute software updates to upgrade your NetBackup clients from, let's say, an older version to a newer version. So to do software updates, make use of the VX update framework. So it's all right for me to say, oh, there's NetBackup 9.1, but you might be worried, oh, how do I upgrade 1,000 clients from the older release to new? Go and look at VX update if you have not had a look at that. And couple of weeks back, I was talking to a customer and he asked me, oh, can we back up virtual machines, VMware virtual machines in AWS? Well, of course, yeah, we can. We started that with NetBackup 8.12 with support for VMC or VMware in cloud. And NetBackup 8.2, we added support for VMware in Azure. So support for Azure virtualization solution goes to NetBackup 8.2, and we introduced support for OpenStack. We introduced a capability that allows you to back up virtual machines, store them deduplicated in AWS, and convert the VMware virtual machine to an EC2 instance straight away through a single step process. And that process goes back to NetBackup 8.2 when it was introduced. So again, a feature straight 2 years in the running, which has been there with some customers using it. We also introduced support for dynamic NAT in NetBackup 8.2. And 8.3 is about 1 year ago when 8.3 release came out. 8.3 was the first release where we introduced immutable backup retention. So immutable backup retention in 8.3 was possible with NetBackup Flex appliances or with OST and targets we support. So today we support immutable retention with the worm capability of OST data domains as well as NEC Hydrasto targets as well. But a major change for cloud deduplication was also MSDP cloud function that came in NetBackup 8.3. So MSDP cloud gives you much more flexibility and nearly twice the performance of the capability we had previously with Cloud Catalyst. So that capability goes back to NetBackup 8.3 when we introduced. And with cloud snapshots, now we also allow granular recovery for individual contents with NetBackup 8.3 onwards. And come January, we introduced NetBackup 9.0. And we also brought in the dynamic NAS capability and ability to do checkpoint backups of NAS environments, right? So if you are using NDMP method today, NDMP works fine, but NDMP has certain limitations with dynamic NAS helps you overcome. So if you're someone who has challenges with NDMP, talk to us and look at the dynamic NAS option as a way forward. And the appliances family, again, we've gone through evolutionary changes from the model 5230 to 5240 that we sold, and now we are selling the much more powerful 5250 appliance. And the 5300 series, we've gone from the 330 to 5340 to 5350 appliance today, and our Flex family. So the Flex family has also now gone through a number of updates, and you can talk to us about using the model 5350's capabilities if you are looking at the Flex family today. Now, incidentally, I talked about containers today, and I mentioned that support for Docker container backups go back to NetBackup 8.2. But I don't know if you know that we started using container technologies way back in 2017 when the Flex appliance was first introduced. So the Flex appliance allows you to run containerized forms of NetBackup instances in one single hardware form factor. So you can run different versions of NetBackup and all in private isolation and with immutable retention today. And that platform is built using container technology that we started using ourselves to give you a better outcome. So you can see we ourselves are using containers to give you a better functionality and capability. So be with us. We have lots of engineers, lots of knowledge, lots of patents behind to make things better for you. Throw us a new challenge. We'll go aggressively work after and try to solve new problems if you find anything that we haven't looked at so far today. And for everything I talked about in a short video, a lot of more facts you can find from our websites. And after session ends, you will get a copy of these slides. and you will be able to get to these URLs and read more details about it. And as always, reach out to us, send your questions through. I believe a number of questions have been coming through. And keep this email in mind if you have any questions related to anything I mentioned here. And if you're looking for a sales or a support conversation regarding any of these features, reach out to this email address. And with that, Amit, how is the Q&A going?
Thank you, Phil. Great, insightful discussion, and well in time. So questions, yes, we've had a few questions, and all of them have been answered. There were a couple of interesting questions, but let me actually throw it to Cheksan and Daniel to see if there are any questions they wanted to call out, and maybe have a quick discussion in the next 3-4 minutes. Cheksan?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, there are some interesting questions that were being posted. I think for many of us, there are curious of when are we going to support like ransomware resiliency or NetBackup BYO. So that has been one of the top questions being asked, maybe not in this forum, but by customers in the regions. So why we only come up with the appliance form factor for ransomware resiliency? Because ransomware resiliency is not only about the target storage or the backup images. It also encompasses protecting that server that is backing up your data. So that will be an important factor which we put into consideration, or our product management put into consideration, not only protecting the storage that is hosting or storing the backup information, but also on the backup server. Because if the intruder were to attack and successfully penetrate the backup servers, whether you are having a immutability storage or not, they'll be able to extract the data, and also to a certain extent be able to manipulate the data on it. But we do have certain plans or certain discussion on introducing the NetBackup immutability on BYO as well. So watch out for that space where in the future we will include that as our plans.
Brilliant, thank you.
And thanks for that, Cheksan. Yes, commonly asked question. And mind you, remember that you can store immutable backups on tape. There are worm tape devices we've supported for a number of years. We also support locations like Glacier Wall Clock for a number of years. And now we've added support for you to store backups on likes of AWS with Object Lock and with OST devices as well. But on the backup media server itself, we need certain functionalities like a clock on the machine itself, which is very important to be under control in a different mechanism, which is why it's been now implemented on the Flex family, because we get the ability to do it. But like Cheksan says, the roadmap is always there. We are still working on even bringing more and more functions. Yeah, Amit, back to you.
Thank you. I think we have one more minute to take a question. So I'll bring out a question, Phil. There was a question around cloud data protection, and you did talk about the cloud point and snapshots way of intelligent way of taking snapshots. So maybe if you could just summarize the possible options for someone to back up infrastructure as a service in cloud.
Okay, yeah. So I would say there are a number of ways. The first option, of course, is you can run NetBackup agents, clients inside the cloud workloads, which you could always do. So there's never stopping you from deploying a NetBackup client into a cloud machine, backing up the files or databases as they are. So that option is there. The cloud snapshot mechanism is the next option, I would say, because the default mechanism for most cloud engineers is to use cloud snapshots as a way of backup. But the problem with cloud engineers doing their own schedules is you might tend to over retain, and because snapshots do cost money. But with NetBackup running the cloud snapshots, you have a definite schedule, you have a record or recovery point, and then you do avoid over retention because you will say how many copies you want retained. And now you can begin to start ingesting copies into a media server and sending backups somewhere else as well. And the third option I will say is, if you are one of those who are deploying VMware in cloud, remember that we support backup of VMware in AWS, Azure environments as well. So if you like VMware on premises, and if you are using VMware in cloud, we have had the capability to back up those just like you do on-prem as well. So I think I'll say those three would be quick wins.
Sounds good. Thank you, Phil, for that concise answer. I think we are at the top of the hour, so thank you all for joining in. As we promised, we will get you the recording of this session over to you, and we will also make sure that if there are any unanswered questions, which I can see the last minute there have been a few questions, we will come back to you with the response. And more importantly, if you have any other questions that you would like to discuss or any other challenges that you would like to discuss, send out an email to us, and we'd be happy to schedule an individual discussion with the local representatives across your country. So with that said, thank you all for joining in for yet another webinar on data protection with Veritas. Stay safe, and until next time, thank you and bye.
And take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Absolutely.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.